Hey everyone, if you ever wished you could highlight podcast Kindle style and share specific moments, you can now do it using the clever.fm app.
You can filter episodes by tags, transcribe episodes live, and even click on links to things like books, articles, and definitions as you listen along.
Download the app on iOS or Android by going to clever.fm.
Listen to Pops in a Pod for a completely enhanced experience.
Pops in a pod. Pops in a pod.
Welcome to Pops in a Pod. I'm Nadir Pop.
And I'm Peter Pop.
On this episode, we are talking about finance again. It's that time of the year again, isn't it, Peter?
Yeah, I think the first half of the year kind of always gets dedicated to such episodes, right? Fitness, finance. What else starts with F?
Nutrition, well, it sort of goes in the fitness zone only, does it not? Food, yeah, there we go, food.
If you're wondering why Nadir and I are talking about finance again, well, we're joined by Soneera Sanghvi and Binal Gandhi, who are authors of the recently released book From Piggybank to Portfolio, How to Raise Financially Smart Kids.
We had an extensive chat with Soneera and Binal, and this is the exciting aspect that not only are they parents, but they are also very, very highly educated women who've had experience of the real world. So they are bringing in their aspects of both personal and professional experience. So yeah, let's just jump straight in and understand their concept of introducing kids to money and more.
Hi, Soneera. Hi, Binal. Welcome to Pops in a Pod.
Hey guys. Hey Nadir. Hey Peter. This is Soneera.
Hi guys. Hi Peter. Hi Nadir. This is Binal.
Okay, cool. I'm so glad you all did that. So now our listeners know whose voice is whose. But we'll definitely be bringing that up later also. But, you know, I'm so glad we're finally doing this episode because we managed to get an early edition or a reviewer's edition of your book. And it was really nice to read it, especially as two dads, honestly, because Nadir and I keep talking about finance on the podcast, but we've never really found resources or anything to read in India. So really glad to have both of you on the podcast with us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm very excited. It's my first podcast ever.
Whoa.
So that's pressure on us then. But Soneera, Binal, before we sort of dive in to the book and our conversation on finance, and especially when it comes to kids, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourselves and your background. Binal, starting from you.
So I've worked in the financial services industry for over 20 years. Part of my experience has been in India, part of it in the US. I've worked for companies like GE Capital and Wells Fargo. I'm also visiting faculty at two of the top business schools here in Mumbai, and I teach courses in wealth management, in corporate finance, and I'm the founder of a financial education program called Finance Gym. The Gym stands for Grow Your Money. It's basically a gamified program, and we work with young people, both in corporates as well as college students. Teaching them the importance of investing, of starting early, and then how to do it rather than just buying and selling and keeping a short-term perspective. And then most recently, Soneera and I have written a book. It's called Piggybank to Portfolio, and we're happy to be here to talk about the book.
Soneera, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Born and brought up in Bombay, and did my undergraduate degree at NMIMS College BMS in finance. I always wanted to study law, so I went to USA and I did my law degree there. Moved to New York, gave the New York bar exam, worked as a lawyer in New York. Moved back to Bombay, and when I moved back to Bombay, I didn't want to do law here because the degree, what I had was a US degree. And so I've always loved writing, and I got into journalism, and I was working as assistant editor at Business India for a while. And then I had kids, so, couldn't do those long hours anymore. So I took a step back, and I was doing freelance writing for publications and design agencies and stuff. And yeah, I've pretty much done writing for the last 10 years. So that's my background.
Wow. So it's great to hear that you'll have such diverse backgrounds. But I think, Soneera, considering your background in law, I want to understand, how did you develop an interest in finance? Was that something that happened in recent years, or was that something from the time you were young itself?
So I will tell you this. I think finance is something that touches all aspects of our lives. And I realized that I will have to take an interest in it, because when I moved to New York and I started earning, and it was the first time I was making, real money in my life, not counting internships or small jobs, before that. And I didn't know how to save. Saving was me just trying to spend less the whole month and then seeing what was left over. It didn't occur to me like a simple basic of, let's maybe put like $300-400 aside first and then, work in that budget. And it sounds so ridiculous now, but, at 21, I didn't know. And that's, sort of how I made a lot of mistakes. I didn't, even when I saved money, I didn't know what to do with those savings. It was sort of steep learning for me. And that's when I was like, okay, I need to figure this stuff out. And then when I had my son, my first child, I remember talking to Binal, and I was like, our children want for nothing. And, if you see something at a friend's place and you really like it, we're always ordering it on Amazon the next day. Or, just lifestyles have become more consumer centric. And I feel like I wanted to sort of teach my children the value of money and sort of instill in them that, these are life lessons that will affect you later on in life. And I didn't want them to make the same mistakes I had made. And that was how, that was my motivation to write the book and take an interest in finance, to answer your question.
So I totally agree with your experience, because I was 23 when I moved out of the house for the first time. I mean, I haven't lived with my parents since then. And I know exactly that feeling, right? Because I was doing an internship and I had all this money, and this was the first time it was my own money. So I was like, okay, I'm going to spend it all. and that catches up with you really fast, right? That's at least, I guess, something we had in common, Soneera. What about you, Binal? I mean, considering I know, and I looked you up on LinkedIn, your first degree was actually not in finance, was actually in engineering. So where did you get into finance? Was it the MBA or post that?
Yes. So no, you're absolutely right, Peter. I have a master's in electrical engineering from Purdue, but I also have an MBA. And my first job was actually in finance. So I worked as an engineer for a short period of time, and then got an MBA. And the reason why I started Finance Gym and also wanted to write this book is because when I started teaching college students, at both these business schools that I teach at, these are very smart, young people with experience earning. Peter just started earning money, and their focus was on their careers and and salaries. I mean, that's a big thing, what salary you graduate out of business school with, right? But what I saw was there was very less focus on how to manage the money that you earn, at that age. And that's, the reason why I started Finance Gym, because it's and honestly, when my story is very similar to yours and Soneera's too. When I started out, even though I had an MBA in finance, in my first job, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do with my money. I saved some of it. I did that, but I don't know if I really knew how to manage it, or how to plan for it or any of that. So that was my motivation for starting Finance Gym as well as writing this book.
It's interesting that both Binal and Soneera, with age, and this is something that I think we as working professionals, again, I don't want to speak on anyone's behalf, but this is something that I have noticed, is the fact that today's generation, right, today's working generation, they are so far removed when it comes to finance and even just basic understanding of finance. Something as simple as saving your money or trying to put in the right financial institutes or institutions or whatever it is, right? That how do you kind of plan that? These are not things that are taught in school and colleges, although it is changing. I feel somewhere it is changing. They're introducing these aspects, taking a leaf from your experience and whatever you all have gone through professionally and personally. There is a clear indication as to why you have written your book from piggy bank to portfolio. Can you take us back at that point as to what was that germ that sort of was created probably in your minds that, hey, okay, we have to do this, and what was the reason why you did it? Soneera, you want to go first?
Yeah, I kind of touched upon this in my previous answer, but so to be very honest, my son goes to an IB school, and I genuinely worry that when children are around, this very entitled sort of sense of company. And I'm not saying all kids are entitled, but you know what I mean? Like everyone is, everyone comes in fancy cars and everyone does vacations and all of that. And it's a bubble. And I was like, I don't want him to think this is life. For me, that was a very big motivating factor. I don't want him to think that lavish birthday parties are the norm. I don't want him to think that, foreign trips are the norm. I want him to have a very grounded sense of life, of money and reality. And to me, that was the biggest motivating factor, to write this book, was do it for my child and myself. And then sort of when we spoke to other parents, and they all had similar concerns, my friends had similar concerns, even if they were not in IB schools, regardless of background and, financial status, parents were like, how do I teach my child the value? I raise kids who are grounded and have a healthy relationship with money. And so for me, that was the germ and the motivating factor to write the book.
Having said that, right, I want to take you back, because I think this is something Nadir and I keep talking about in there, is that a lot of our experiences, right, or a lot what we look at our children's experiences, we're comparing them directly to ours. So just to set some context before we get into the book, and maybe Binal, you can take this for, is since Soneera said, our kids are far more privileged or entitled compared to us. What was it like in your relationship with money growing up? I mean, what's your earliest memory? Did you get pocket money? How old were you? And maybe then we can hear from Soneera.
Honestly, I think my relationship with money growing up was almost non-existent. So we never thought about money. In fact, in my house, curiosity about everything was encouraged. So we were, I come from a family, my parents owned a family business. And so, questions about the business, questions about, science, questions about politics, all that was always very encouraged. But questions about money, on the other hand, were considered very impolite. Or if someone else asked the question, they would be judged as, maybe being money-minded. So, essentially, questions about money were not encouraged when I was growing up. And I did receive some spending money, so I did not get any pocket money growing up, really. But whatever I needed, I was given, which was not a whole lot. In those days, we didn't have a whole lot of things to spend on. So, whatever it was, I got. In fact, it's interesting because when I went to the US to study, that year, the rupee fell by a significant amount. And, it was like 15, 20% or so. And, it must have pinched my parents. As I look back now, I think it must have pinched my parents, because clearly my tuition that they paid for the first year went up by 15, 20%. But, I was happily unawares. I, went off. They didn't tell me and I didn't know. So as I look back, I just think, I was pretty much clueless. when it came to money.
Wow, that's really something, Binal, because and especially considering what you do right now, right? Just to hear such a contrasting experience for you growing up. Soneera, what about you? Was it similar, different? Please tell us about what it was like for you. Actually, start off by telling us how much pocket money you got. I'm very curious to know.
To be honest, I don't remember exactly. I think it started off with 20 rupees, which in those days was enough to, take a rickshaw home from wherever you were in case of emergency. So I think that it started off with, my mom just giving me 20 rupees saying, you should have this with you at all times. Then slowly as I got older, especially, around 8th, 9th standard, when we started going out with friends after school, for like pavada or, at Jew Club, we would go for orange juice and dosa or something like that. So then we started getting little more, like maybe 200 rupees or something like that. And then, it was hiked proportionately to age. But, going back, one of the things I did want to mention was Binal and I had a similar upbringing in that sense that even my father and mom both have a family business. So, life was very good. And then it wasn't. And we hit a rough patch financially for a few years. And so we went from having a very, I don't want to say flippant, but, nonchalant attitude towards money to suddenly realizing the value of money for those few years. And I remember thinking, oh, okay, I guess, I have to think about money now, which was great. And I feel like those were great learning years for us. And not that I wish financial hardship upon me or my child, but I think those are really great ways to sort of really learn what matters when it comes to money.
There's something very interesting that I came across in the book, and since both of you all are talking about your childhood and both your respective families being in business, what I did, and I have a daughter. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and my wife and I are extremely prudent when it comes to any kind of financial conversations that we have with her, whether it's related to, I can't get into investments, but just basic savings, where does money come from, how it works, the very basics. So the interesting thing that I did come across in the book is that in many families, girls are taught about saving and budgeting, while boys are taught about investing and growing money. So when it comes to the kind of experiences that you all have, and you all have shared a bit, what was that like with your parents? Binal, you want to go first?
Sure. So I had a brother growing up. So I guess I have a little more experience. Soneera had sisters, and she'll tell you more about that. But so yeah, in my household, it was absolutely, well, there was focus for both of us on education and careers. So, from that perspective, we were definitely treated equally. But for my brother, it was more, joining the family business. That was the assumption, when he would join, how he would sort of take care of it and so on. For me, it was definitely, when you grow older, you get married, you have to manage a household. So, growing up, I think that that was pretty much true for me. And, even the parents' survey that we did, we got similar results. So when we asked them who managed the budget in the household, it was definitely, more the mom or the women. Who managed investing was or the men in the household. So, it kind of reflected.
No, absolutely. I think it's a similar story, and parents now are here to flip the script. Hopefully change it for the better. Boy, girl, it doesn't really matter. But Soneera, Binal did mention that you grew up with sisters, so that must be something quite different when it comes to matters of the money.
Yes. So we have 3 sisters, and we were very lucky. My parents are very modern and pragmatic. So when it came to education, they said, we both have a bachelor's. We expect you to do more. They expected all of us to do masters, study more, all of that. And there was no difference in the way money was taught to one or the other, except that, we weren't taught investing and all of that. It was just, saving is good, or, you should have a budget. Clearly, I did not pay attention to those lessons since there I was in New York, not saving well. But to get back to your question, it's one of the things that really, really touches a nerve with me, because generation, all my friends, I would say 95% of the relationships among our friends, the wife does not manage the money, the husband manages the money, or even when it's the wife's own money or her salary or her inheritance, the father or the brother or the husband manages it for her. And I just feel like we don't empower women enough as a society to do and make decisions when it comes to money. And that really hoping that my daughter will manage her own money, and maybe she'll manage my son's too.
Wow, that's so interesting, because I'm glad both of you brought up the survey and the research that you all did. And one thing I'm really glad that you all did is primary research, because honestly, there isn't much research when it comes to parents, right? Talking about that, what was, other than what you all have already mentioned so far, what was something that you found in that research that totally surprised you? Who wants to take it first? I think, Binal, you want to go for that?
Sure. So, I think I was most surprised by, well, okay, let me step back. One of the questions that we asked in the survey was, what are some of the questions that your children ask you that you have difficulty answering or that you need help with? And the amount of questions, the number of questions that we got were a big surprise. And, the kinds of questions that they ask, clearly they are thinking about money, and clearly, we as parents need to be there to help them, answer these questions and to help them understand money in the right way, so that we can share our values and our, views about money with. So, there were some questions, lots of questions about income. So how much money do you make? How much money do various family members make, or friends make? Questions about, are we rich? Do we have enough? Why is someone poor? Then there were questions like, how do you make fake money? Questions about, why don't you print more money so that we can use it? I remember one of the kids saying, money in the bank, if they don't give us whatever we need, why is it limited? So, the whole thought process there. So I mean, these questions, some of them were funny, some of them were very inquisitive, but I think what really surprised me was just the sheer number of these questions and how much curiosity our kids have, when it comes to money.
So I have a quick follow-up to that, and
Sure.
I think maybe Soneera, you can take this. And I'll be honest here, right? For the longest time, I had no idea how much money my dad made, or I had no idea about incomes, because we have that typical Indian mentality, right? Ki income poochna nahi. It's similar to how in office you never ask your colleague what his salary is, right? We income is one of those things. I mean, I think in Indian society we discuss everything under the sun except income and salary, right? And I think both of you can agree to that. And what makes me wonder is, you think that things are changing, right? Like, there's a new generation, or there are a new couple of generations coming in, but the attitudes haven't changed. Is that something that you've noticed again in the survey that you're doing, that while kids are asking these questions or curious to know, it's the parents who are resisting it and don't want, or still kind of, enforcing those things that they grew up with? And where do you think that gap is like? Soneera, you want to take that?
So, Peter, to be honest, no, things are changing. There were moms that I interviewed personally. We did a lot of personal interviews apart from our survey and questionnaire. I was amazed at how many moms who, they have kids who are older, right? So they're 18, some were 16, even some who were 20. And they said our children know a lot about, they know that we have investments, they know, so they may not know exactly how much money the parents make, as in the salary figure, but parents had very honest conversations about kids saying, this is how much I've saved up for you. We have invested in so and so, which definitely, I mean, maybe people, but of those people that never happened with me, and I can, it didn't happen with any of my friends either, if we're talking about our generation. But I think slowly things are changing, and maybe from our perspective, I could see myself having a conversation when my kids are older, and maybe not everything, parts of what our investment portfolio looks like.
I have a very distinct memory of my sister, and this was way back. I think she was about 7 or 8 years old, and somehow she managed to get her hands onto a book which had details of the stocks and shares that my dad had invested at that time. Obviously nobody knew about it, right? And at that time there was nothing digital, so everything had to be handwritten in the books. And I don't know how, because my dad is very particular about how he stores these things and keeps it in cabinets where kids can't reach it. And for some reason my sister somehow managed to get her hands on it. Maybe they forgot to put it or whatever it was. She took it with her to her friend's house, who's one of the neighbors in the building. And when my dad found out what happened, he just lost his head, right? And I remember so well the way he was screaming at her, and she was young. And I was like, what's the big deal, right? I mean, what sort of happened? And then I think my mom tried to explain everything to me about it. And now that I think about it, that when we grew older, he sort of came to me and he said, hey, listen, these are all my stocks and my shares, and now that it's all digitized, I can show it to you, that this is where my investments are and everything, and blah and blah. And I was like, wow, like it was such a great memory, from what my sister experienced to what I experienced when I grew older. And now today that I'm a parent, I really want to understand your perspective, because I'm sort of on the fence. I'm not sure if I want to expose my daughter to the kind of investments that we have made so far, or just generally the aspect of what is our wealth. Not now, maybe when she's 18. But do you think it's prudent to be doing this at this stage? Bina?
Sure. I think the results with you first, and then I'll sort of share some other data points with you. Essentially, so the question we asked was, should you disclose your income to your children, and if so, when? So 90% of the parents said that they would disclose their income. I think 5% said somewhere between the age of 10 and then another 45% said older than 18, right? So I feel so like Soneera said, things are changing. People do, our parents are recognizing that they need to share a little more information with their children. So that's one. But I feel at the right, understand why parents, or at least one of the reasons why parents don't want to share their income, is that they would be concerned that the child would think, oh, we've got plenty of money, and they wouldn't have any motivation to do anything with their career or education or any of that, right? So and which is a very legitimate concern that parents would have, right? But on the flip side of that, and in fact, in one of our interviews with Zareen Daruwala, the CEO of Stancy, she talks about this, that there are crores and crores of rupees that are just lying in bank accounts, which lie unclaimed. And the reason is because, the families were not necessarily aware that this was even there. So,
Wow, that's crazy.
yeah, so it's important to disclose, give this information to your children, but at the right age, when you feel that they have, they're mature enough to not share it with others, and they're mature enough to understand. But when they are ready, it's really important to give them that information, or at least they should know where the money sits, where are the accounts where they can access it in case something happens to you.
Okay, that's really handy advice. But coming back to the book, and I wrote this down because when I read it, this is something that really struck me, where you mentioned, and I'm not going to attribute to who it is because it's co-authored, right? Is that do not over provide, but give enough that your child is comfortable. Now, we all grew up in the 80s, 90s, right? We know what life was pre-liberalization in India, where you had just one soft drink, one everything, one television channel also. Now, in theory, what you've written is great, but the reality is different, right? I mean, we feel as parents that guilt that, hamare paas nahi tha, why should we deprive the child? Or you don't want your kids basically to have the same experience growing up that you did. Maybe Soneera, since you have two kids, what has your experience been like, and how do you kind of deal with it as a parent?
I mean, for sure. I think, I'm not a big spender, neither is my husband. That's not our personality. The sheer amount of toys that we have, whether they are hand-me-downs or whether, some are pieces that fit birthday parties, return gifts, is just, to me, it is like, I don't think that this should be normal, but it is, because, we go to other friends' houses for play dates. We go to meet other kids. Everyone seems to have everything. They have Lego, they have magnetiles, they have those pop things that are so annoying, that are all the rage right now. And
Hey, I've actually been guilty of using my son's Pop-It more than him. Trust me, it's really relaxing.
but the point is that I do think that our kids are over provided for, and maybe somewhere it is time to collectively take a step back and say, let's maybe buy toys only on birthdays. This was a conversation we were having a few days ago. Is I remember growing up, we only got toys on birthdays or like really special occasions. And I do this. If I see something that I think my child will like, I will buy it on Amazon the next day. I will go find a deal for it somewhere online and get it. And somehow that whole concept of toys being like a once in a while, oh wow, I've got a new toy, and that novelty of it, that like it, that is what makes it special. And I feel that special feeling, maybe that's just my experience, that it seems to be across the board.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Soneera. When my girls were growing up, and I've got two girls, both of them, it was interesting because when they received like a birthday gift, any gift, first they would play with the racket, they would play with the box, then they would play with the toy that was inside the box. So kids actually don't need a whole lot. They're happy to play with wrapping paper too. So I think at some point as parents, all of us need to kind of keep telling ourselves that, they're happy playing with paper or a box. It's us. So at some point, yeah, we're going to keep telling ourselves to, tone it down a little bit when it comes to indulging them.
I completely agree with keeping expectations very realistic. And so this experience took me back to your 6th chapter, where you point out that you don't have to spend to fit in with your friends. And this is something that I have personally experienced, right? Not from a friend standpoint, but my own sister. So every time my sister comes home, she obviously drives nice big cars, and my daughter notices it, and she can tell the difference between the really good high-end quality stuff as opposed to the regular normal standard things. And she obviously vibes with it, right? And she'll keep asking us that how come we don't have this and how come we don't have that. And we do our best to explain that, there are different lifestyles and people lead different lifestyles. And there is the aspect of money at that age. The sooner they learn, the better it is. But how do you sort of explain, to these kids that sometimes you have to sort of play within your own budget and sort of stick to things that are very important in life and not really overspend if you don't have the means? Binal, I would like to get your perspective on this first.
So this is where our behavior as a parent becomes really important. So if we focus on the car and how fancy it is, on someone else's car, and if we talk a lot about it, the child's going to learn, and the child's going to see how we are giving that car so much more importance. Whereas if we focus on how we enjoyed the weekends in our car, the child learns that that's more important to us. So modeling our behavior is what the child does. Our children are watching us, and we need to be very careful about what we say. As they grow older, though, being open with them about financial trade-offs, because that's the key. In the end, I think our children need to understand that our money is finite. It's not infinite. And everything in our life is about trade-offs. So, really explaining to them that, a bigger car may mean, a smaller vacation, maybe, going on a vacation for a fewer days or something like that. So, explaining the trade-offs as they grow older, will help them understand that money is finite. And that's just the way of life. I think as they grow up and think about this some more, I mean, it just sort of becomes a thought process, and that's one of the big reasons why we want to start early, right, with these kids, talking to them about all these things.
No, completely makes sense. Soneera, do you have any such experiences where you've noticed this? Because you did mention that your kids go to IB school, and clearly there are families who can. And my child also does go to an IGCSE board, so I see very different sets of parents. So I'm sure you'll have some stories and experiences to share.
Not specifically, with my son who's in the IB school, but I'll give you a story that happened like 4 days ago. My daughter, it was very close to bedtime, so I will put in an excuse for her there, but she had an absolute meltdown over this 50 rupee, those rubber balls that you bounce and the light happens. We have, I think, at least 2 of them at home, but her cousin who was over at our house had one with spikes on it. And oh my God, my child was like, but I want spiky light ball, her ball is better than my ball. And I was just like, oh my God. So it happens, right? And it happens from a young age, and it happens with something as small as a 50 rupee light ball, not even, about the bigger stuff. And I sat her down, and I don't know if this was I don't know if there is a right way to deal with this, but I said, you cannot have everything that your cousin has, and she cannot have everything you have. Everyone has different things. And we should appreciate that about each other, just the way you have cute curly hair and she has straight hair. And it was sort of this conversation I had where I made it about other things in life as well. I think she just got so bored with my explanation that she stopped crying.
Good one.
I constantly reinforce that in our kids, that you have things, and other people have things, and there's always going to be a difference. Sometimes it's going to be better, sometimes it's going to be not better, and that's just how life rolls. And this is, real life sort of thing. And to take that one step further, I also have reinforced that just because you like something doesn't mean everyone else has to like it, and it sort of ties in together with different ideologies and stuff like that as well. But The other thing I wanted to add to Binal's answer is also our research shows that parents are the number one influencers when it comes to your child's attitude about money. So if parents model behavior that is not constantly looking at other people and discussing brands or, cars or other people's finances or other people's lifestyle, then children are less likely to do it. They'll just model your behavior. And the last thing is also, and we speak about this in our book, we have a whole chapter on it, is gratitude, right? To constantly reinforce that we have a lot and to create that sense of abundance, that what we have is enough and, what we have is great. And let's be thankful for that.
Wow. First of all, I must commend you for that whole meltdown, because I think not only Nadir, me, Binal, but everyone listening to this podcast can totally relate to that. And like I was jokingly saying before we started recording, these are things that no parenting book will teach you. Your parents definitely will not tell you about. They'll just probably say that you were exactly the same. But I want to switch the conversation slightly differently. I mean, last year, Nadir and I did an episode with a gentleman named Sandeep Suri. And, he talked about how you could incentivize kids for doing chores. And, you'd create these kind of tokens for them, which then would be, something that they could redeem in there. Now, one thing we noticed in the book is earning for chores is something that you kind of disagree with. Binal, you want to kind of tell us about it and where you're coming from there? Because, growing up, and just to add a little more context, that's something which all of us, I think, at least Nadir and I grew up with, right? Like you do something, you'd get like a certain pocket money or you do a certain chore. And for us, at least the way it looked at it is it created that discipline, right? That, you're earning and getting money, not just kind of getting it. So tell us more about it, Binal, if you could.
Parents look at this aspect of it in two different ways. And, what we believe is doing household chores, should be part of your responsibility. So, when you're given money for that, you're right. It's positive reinforcement, right? So it will sort of inculcate that habit, hopefully. But there is also a risk there of just doing those chores for money. So, there's a balance there that we as parents, should be able to, or should keep rather. So when your child is just doing chores for the sake of money and not recognizing that it's their responsibility to, make their bed or clean up their room, that may not always be the right approach, right? So in my personal case with my girls, and this clean your room is my girls are older, they're both teenagers, and it's the toughest thing to do. I have chosen for this particular thing, negative reinforcement. So what we do is when we see, that her game is lying around, we'll just take it away and confiscate it for a day. So in my personal case, instead of using positive reinforcement for this, for cleaning their room, we've chosen to use negative reinforcement because, it is their responsibility. They have to keep their room clean. They have to contribute to the household in one way or the other. So,
Soneera, I know you have younger kids. Are you also practicing something similar?
Yes, I mean, Binal and I were absolutely on the same page when, we were discussing this and writing this, which is cleaning your house or just your room or whatever it may be. It's a part of your household responsibility that you have to do as a functioning member of the house. And I should not be paying you to do this. I will pay you, that will be above and beyond, but this is basic. Like, #basic, do it.
No, this is such a An interesting and very, very fresh approach, because normally even when we have conversations with professionals, who are parents or otherwise, we are constantly hearing stories in the similar zone where it's like, "Acha, inse ye kaam karwa lo," and we'll set a budget that, okay, if you do X, Y, Z, we'll give you so much. If you do, beyond that, we'll give you so much. And it just felt that you put the aspect of earning your own money from a young age. But now that I'm listening to this argument, and I just feel, yaar, this has to be a part of the growing up responsibility. You can't expect them to get paid for it. So yeah, I really appreciate the counter, and I understand why I would want to not take this argument further, because it sort of makes sense in my head now. So
I'll just quickly wrap up. That said, there are different books that advocate it. And Binal and I have read tons of books on this topic in the last few years. And there are books that say pay your children for chores, and if they're cleaning stuff, pay them. And that's not to say it's wrong. This was just our point of view.
Because the flip side, the flip side is that parents are concerned about raising entitled children if the children are just getting money, right? If you get pocket money for doing nothing, that means you're just expecting it, right? So there is some truth to that also. Having said that, I think, kind of keeping that balance, to me, I know Soneera's tired of that word because I keep using it, but it's about balancing, both these and seeing what works for your child.
True. Yeah. The last thing I want is my son at 18 doing his bed and saying, where's my pocket money now in addition, right? I'll just be like, what? Right. You're getting already so much money and you want pocket money for cleaning your own bed, which you're only going to sleep with.
Listen, 18 is still okay. Imagine at 30 years, the kids come and say, okay, I'm down with my bed now. Can I have some money? I was like, what are you doing here? I thought you were in the US. When did you? So we've spoken so much about savings and investments and, starting off with financial education with children at a young age. While we were reading the book, both Peter and I sort of stumped upon one thing, that there was nothing about taxation or taxes, direct or indirect. Is that a very conscious decision, both Soneera and Binal, you all took not to introduce that aspect in the book? Or is it something that, it just doesn't make sense considering the flow of your book? Binal, you want to go first?
So we did talk about it, but there are so many other aspects of finance that, we haven't really addressed. So I think we made a conscious decision to keep taxes and many other aspects of finance out, because the goal of the book is to keep it simple and to get parents started on this journey with their children. And I think once that awareness is there, as the kids grow up, getting that knowledge through other sources will be a lot easier.
Yeah, and I hope nobody finds out like I did when I got my first paycheck doing a part-time job, how much really taxes are. Especially because, put it to context, this was in Canada, so it was tax deducted at source. And you look at, you're making a minimum wage, you're working a minimum wage job, and you see the amount, and then suddenly you look at the taxes and you're like, what? So yeah, as an 18-year-old, that's the worst thing to find out about taxes through.
You're talking about your first paycheck, but I do the taxes for us and I feel that pain every year. So it doesn't become any lesser.
So I actually have a really funny story. One of my first jobs that I started, that the man who was hiring me, explained the whole package to me, and it sounded really great. Okay, it was like, oh yeah, we'll give this, and it was all upar ka figures. It was all high level figures, and my paycheck reflected nothing of what we had spoken. So I was like, how can there be such a big difference between what I was promised?
That is a pain every
and
18 or 19-year-old has gone through.
And so I go back to him and I remember this so clearly because those words are still etched in my mind. I said, figure, Y figure, and he said, that's cost to company, CTC. And I swear, those abbreviations are like etched in my brain because I felt so duped in that moment. I was like, what is CTC? And then they started explaining all these different allowances and all these different cuts, about some house rental thing and this thing and that thing and all these different, things that went out of my paycheck, and how my mind was blown. So, yeah.
So sorry you had to go through it. I think all of us did. And all of us feel that, oh my God, we just got cheated out of our first salary or first payment or whatever.
Yeah, and to think about it, right? That first paycheck is so important to you as a young person, and then you realize you've literally got the government's hand in your pocket in there.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad we had this conversation because while reading the book, I found out so much about both of you, not only as people in finance but also as parents. But I know we've talked quite a bit. Do you think there's something that we haven't talked about? Any kind of closing comments you'll want to add? Binal, you want to go first?
One of the questions, and I want to mention the survey again, one of the questions that we asked the parents was, what was that one topic that they wish they had learned when they were teenagers? And an overwhelming majority of them said investing. I think 80% of the parents said they wish they had learned investing when they were teenagers. And we stress on this a lot in the book. So the most important part when it comes to investing is not necessarily knowing a whole lot about stocks, bonds. Of course, you do need the knowledge, but time is the most important part when it comes to investing. And if your children, as they grow up, if the earlier they start, it makes a huge difference. And the reason is because of the power of compounding. So, forget children. The power of compounding is sometimes even difficult for adults to fathom. And, how important time is when it comes to compounding your wealth. So, starting early is one of the most important things when it comes to investing. And that's one of the big reasons why we urge all parents to get their children started on the investing journey in their teenage years, so that they are learning, they're making mistakes, and they're learning as they go along, so that when they start earning their first paycheck, they're ready. They know what to do with their money.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
So one of the things that you had asked was about parents disclosing income or portfolio or talking about money to their children. It was earlier on. And one of the things I wanted to say was, I feel like this pandemic has really forced that conversation on a lot of families. A lot of parents we interviewed actually sat down with their kids and said, hey, we've had salary cuts and things are going to change a little bit around the house. Some of them had job losses. Some of them decided to quit their jobs and start their own family, own business, like an entrepreneurial venture. And so all of these things, we found that a lot of parents had very honest conversations. They weren't necessarily harsh, but they were just really honest conversations with their kids about money, things changing and it affecting the family, and how they were going to deal with it as a family together. And I think that was great in terms of being honest and upfront with children in obviously, an age sensitive way. But it was also one of the things that a lot of the therapists and counselors we spoke to said, they've always said, be honest, keep it, cushion it, so that it's age appropriate. But honesty is really the best policy when it comes to kids and disclosing reasons behind certain financial decisions that you make as a family that affects the whole family. So that was one of the things. And the other thing that I wanted to mention that I feel like we didn't touch upon, I have friends, cousins, all of whom are like, oh, you two Guju moms, writing a book about money, ha ha ha. You all just want all kids to become billionaires and all of like what most people don't realize is that a child's habits or personality traits that actually affect their future financial success start forming at a very early age. And we mentioned this right up front in our book, I think on page 3, is that they start forming as early as age 7 or 8. There's tons of research to back this. So it's not necessarily how your child handles money now. It could just be the fact that your child asks for more chocolate and is not able to delay gratification, or the ability to plan and think about the future. All of these things sound very small right now, but they affect a child's ability to save later, the likelihood that they would buy their own house, their credit score. All of these things are correlated 20, 30 years into the future. And so when we write this book and we say start young with your kids, it's not about teaching kids the importance of money. Like it's really not about the importance of money. It's really about having a healthy relationship with money and and being able to grow up secure. So whether you make a little money or a lot of money, it's just about having a good sense of money management and having a healthy relationship with money at the end of the day. Because, and we say this in our book as well, that the ability to make the decisions that you want in life depends a lot on how much money you have. And that is what brings us joy, right? To be able to do what you want, whether that is painting or traveling around the world, or that cannot connect back to money. And so this book is just about making sure that our kids have a healthy, holistic view of money.
Thank you so much, Soneera. I think those are some very wise words. Binal, thank you so much for introducing us to the concept of compounding. And I think, as we all know, the pandemic has changed everyone's lives in all aspects of our lives, whether it's bringing up kids or whether it's online schooling. Today, finances, which we are just witnessing newer and newer things thanks to one pandemic. So great insight over there. If you could just tell us, how can people reach out to you? Where can they buy the book? That'll be great.
The book is available on Amazon as well as the bookstores. It's also available on the Kindle for those of you who do not want to buy a book.
Wow, that's great. And I'm sure we'll drop a link in our show notes for all those interested. But like Nadir said, thanks so much, Soneera, Binal, for taking time out and speaking to us. It's been a great chat.
Thank you. Also, I just want to add, you can contact me at Soneera, Soneera, Soneera@gmail.com, or find me on Instagram at Soneera_S.
You can reach me at Binal at thelearningcurveacademy.com, or you can post your questions on our website www.financegym.in.
Thank you so much, Soneera and Binal. It was a lovely chat on finance and children, of course. I mean, I don't think we would go anywhere without them at this point. So really appreciate that you all took out the time, and hope your book is a mighty success. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's amazing to talk to professional parents who understand finance. I mean, it's just great to know what is it and how they think about talking about money with their children. Peter, have you started talking to your son about money?
Yeah, especially at the times where he thinks that I have this endless supply of money where I can always supply him with whenever he wants French fries and toys and stuff like that. Like just the other day, actually, he was annoying me, asking me for a particular toy that he saw on YouTube. And I was like, you know what? I have no money for it. And just the look on his face, right? Because it's that moment where he realizes that he can't get everything that he wants. So yeah, it's going to be a gradual process, but it's going to be an interesting one, I think.
So I've already started speaking about money and finance with my daughter. But let me tell you this fun story. So just a couple of days ago, my daughter walks up to me and says, Papa, why don't you buy an iPhone? Now, the story is that, my phone doesn't work, the camera doesn't work, and she knows that it's kind of becoming a junk piece now. So she's like, why don't you buy an iPhone? And I just told her, because I can't afford it. And then she just looks at me and says, so then make more money. I was like,
wow.
Yeah.
The wisdom of a 5-year-old.
I was just shocked. Yeah, this is a 5-year-old just who comes in and me, okay, then make more money. And I'm like, how do I make more money? I'm working as hard as possible. And now, again, I did not want to put stuff in her head that, oh, who's telling you this and whose iPhone did you see and blah, because there are quite a few people she would have interacted with and seen an iPhone. So I told her that, okay, the phone that I can afford and it's very close to, the iPhone in terms of features and work and everything is a OnePlus. So then she's like, OnePlus. So then like, yeah. So then I show up my phone. I said, this is OnePlus. And then she looks at and says, why don't you buy 2+? There is no such brand as 2+. She's like, no, but 2 is better, right? I was like, okay, it doesn't work like that.
My God,
but yeah.
I just hope the OnePlus brand manager is not listening to us on this podcast, because he's going to be like, oh boy.
Yeah, but see, this is the thing. I think money now, she clearly understands there's a very strong connection with money and, materialistic things that she's got. The challenge is how to, or rather not how, it's a process to explain to her that you can't just buy these things, it's not like as you said, unlimited resource and just keep pumping in money. It doesn't work. So yes, the conversation has started. She gets it. She understands the aspect of earning. She understands that work means money means buying things. So at least she's got that cycle in her place. So yeah, I mean, in a way it's working out for me, but it's going to take a while.
Wow, your daughter has figured out capitalism so fast. It's not even funny.
Yeah. I mean, for kids, it's all about these new shiny things, right? But we have to keep bringing the conversation back that these new shiny things cost you money, and money comes when you work. So somewhere along the line, I'm going to keep drilling this in her head till it becomes a habit. So yeah, the journey is on. Let's see when she really, really grasps it and how old she is by then.
I think, it'll come a full circle when you tell her to buy iPhone 125 or something, and she says, I can't buy it, and you'll be like, work more.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait for that day. I'm gonna take that advice. Like, work more for it and buy me also one.
I know, 2+. That's I think those are the highlights of this episode. But yeah, on a serious note, we'd love to know, at least from our listeners, have you started talking to your kids about money? I mean, one of the things that I really enjoyed about reading the book that Soneera and Binal have authored is that it's a handbook, right? That's what I would take it. Like, it's so easy to kind of follow certain steps. So yeah, definitely do let us know if you have been talking to your kids about money, and how have you gone about it? I mean, is there a structured way you follow? Are you winging it like Nadir and me at the moment in teaching our kids capitalism? Let us know. As always, you can reach out to us at popsinapod@gmail.com.
And you can search for us on Facebook, Instagram. We are there. We put up our updates on episodes. And in case if you feel that you found some interesting person on social media, do tag us and let us know if we can have a chat with them. And if they're interesting, then yeah, they will show up on the podcast. And maybe you can also show up on the podcast if you have an interesting story to tell. So until then, stay tuned and go buy this book. Trust me, if you're a parent, or even if you're not a parent, you need to understand how finance works for kids. And stay tuned and see you next week.
See you then. Bye-bye.